Hi everyone! Imagine you're having a couple of nice ingredients. You have artificial intelligence, advanced machine learning, and on top of that, augmented reality. And you mix those ingredients in a warm, nice soup. The soup of the future. Then you drink it. What will you see?
Cut! What the hell was wrong with that take?
Nothing with you, baby Herman. You were great. You were perfect. You were better than perfect. Just Roger. He keeps blowing his lines.
Roger,
What's this?
a tweeting bird.
Eating bird. Roger, read the script. Look what it says.
It says rabbit gets clunked, rabbit sees stars. Not birds, stars!
Can we lose the playback, please? You're killing me, killing me.
For crying out loud, Roger! How many times do we have to do this thing?
And that's what's gonna happen if we don't shape up. How many in here have seen Roger Rabbit before? Almost everyone. Wow. Yeah, so then you have already seen pretty early on a vision for the future where digital elements are mixed with reality. And this movie was released in 1988, so quite a long time ago. We knew this already. My name is Norrevik, and I'm the CEO of Antler Interactive. And the AR market has seen a lot of interesting investments recently. And the AR market is estimated to be worth $3.5 billion. Already in 2017, we saw $3 billion invested in AR/VR, half of which were in the last quarter. A little while after, Google backed the AR cloud platform Ubiquiti 6 in a $10.5 million funding round. After a while, a few months, they got even more money, in total $27 million for the AR cloud platform Ubiquiti 6. And Apple acquired the AR company Aconia Holographics that produces lenses for AR glasses. And the AR company Control Labs raised $28 million from GV and Alexa Fund for neural interfaces, cutting digital images and placing them in reality. And then Google's Gradient Ventures joined a $58 million funding round for AR startup Mojo Vision. And most people don't think about AR games when they think about AR. But in fact, we have a lot of things going on in AR games specifically. For example, the Pokemon Go studio Niantic acquired the AR firm Escher Reality in 2018. And Magic Leap, that you definitely all know about, gets even more money now, $280 million in 2019. They also had a competition very recently, I think it was at Christmas, where developers all around the world could submit game concepts to them, and all kinds of concepts, in fact. And they got 5,000 submissions, where they could just pick and choose who would work with them. Even in Sweden, we have a lot of AR going on. Bubblar Group, a Swedish company, acquired the company Wobbling for $5.5 million recently. So it's clear that AR is standing on the shoulder of giants. And it's estimated that the AR market will surpass the VR market in 2020. And the AR platform Ubiquiti 6 that was mentioned, they don't call themselves a game company, but it's pretty clear what their platform can be used for. Here we see a video where a guy is planting seeds at a square. They are growing up, he comes back to water them, and then they are full carrots a while after. Another video that Ubiquiti 6 has published on their website is the following, where a couple of colleagues are playing basketball in their office. And if this is not a platform perfect for games, then what is? And of course, Microsoft, the giant Microsoft in investing loads in AR. Here is an example of how our future could look like, our daily life with augmented reality, where you can increase the size of your TV just by using your fingers in the air, working side by side with AR to create better models in the computer. And this lays the foundation for AR games to become part of our lives as well. And not even Microsoft can keep their hands off AR games. We just saw that Minecraft Earth is gonna come out this summer, and that's gonna be huge, gonna be competing with all the other AR games out there. We recently saw a trailer coming out, I think it was last week, showing not how the gameplay looks like, but that a girl was going on a skateboard seeing AR elements mixed with reality around the houses on the street. And Google has recently rolled out to all their Pixel phones an integration where AR arrows shows the way of where you're going in Google Maps. They also have an implementation for Google Search, where if you search for an image or an object, it appears a 3D object in the search result, which you can place through your camera in reality and then walk around and seeing it from all angles. The example I've seen is they took a shark that they searched for at Google and then put it in reality. And then you can get as close as you like to these objects.
Attacked, and you grab power.
This is a video from Apple's most recent event, where they were showing up a new AR game. A game studio had made a game where people can play multiplayer and shoot down enemies that came out from an arcade. So obviously all of these giants are extremely interested in AR and what we can do with it. And when they are investing this much in AR, then there is gonna be AR in the future, for sure. But let's get back for a while to what we're gonna go through in this presentation. So to start with, I'm gonna talk a little bit about who I am and where I work, Antler Interactive, what is that? Next up, we're gonna talk about the story of AR. So what are your references and where are we going? And of course, where are we now? After that, we're gonna talk about where you can start real practically with AR, if you have an idea. Last but not least, we're gonna go through some exciting unknown territory that is not yet explored. There are so many questions in AR that are left to look into, which are super interesting. So who am I? My name is Norrevik and I'm the CEO of Antler Interactive. And previously I worked at Paradox Interactive as a producer for almost 5 years. And during this time, I was still am, super interested in AR, VR games and creating the future. So I worked on a spare project in my free time, making an escape room game in VR. And I saw that there was this company at the time called SVRVIVE Studios, which were making something similar, but 100 times more professional. And so I subscribed to their newsletter to follow what they were doing. And 2 years later, they were looking for a CEO, and it felt like the perfect match. So I started there last August. And at Antler Interactive, as we are nowadays called, because we have switched from being a pure VR studio to becoming an augmented reality mobile studio. And we are 10 people, super passionate about games and new technology and creating the future. The first thing we did was creating a game called Survive the Deus Helix, which is a puzzle adventure game in VR in beautiful environments. The second game was called Katong, Death by Cardboard, which is a stealth FPS game where you walk around in environments and a city that is completely made up by cardboard. Super cool. And even though these games got a lot of good critics, were on the best-selling VR games on Steam, we still didn't sell as many copies as we had hoped. And one reason might, of course, be that the number of sold VR headsets in the world are still pretty few, and there are still not that many using VR actively on a monthly basis. So we figure like we can make high-quality games, but we need a bigger player base. And so we saw augmented reality, and we know that there are 2 billion devices that can play augmented reality. So basically everyone who owns a smartphone, a modern smartphone today, can play with augmented reality. So we switched over to that, and the first thing we did was making a work-for-hire project for a Swedish company in AR. And we learned that the transition from VR to AR, it wasn't that big, to be honest. And then we continued to create the world's first AR racing game with blockchain support. And I'm not going to have a lecture about blockchain here today, but to mention quickly, we were experimenting with monetization models where you can create assets that you can use in your game on the blockchain, and also partnering up with a blockchain company. And this game is called Crystal Kart. It's a social mobile AR racing game where you can play up to 4 players against each other. And of course, I bet you're now curious about how does AR work in this game. And there are 2 ways that AR works in this game. The first one is that you steer the car, or we can start from the beginning actually. The first thing the player needs to do is placing out their AR content. So they need to find a flat surface with contrasts on it and having good lighting. After that, you can choose a steering method in which you steer the car by moving the camera, because the car accelerates towards the midpoint of the screen. The second aspect in AR in this game is that you can get as close as you like to the environments, because the AR space is stable there, so you can just move the camera to see all the details you want in the graphical elements. And by that, you can either follow the car to really take the turns, accurately, or you can, hold it back and watch how everything plays out so that you know exactly when to time your bomb to put for another player. And let's start with the story of AR now. So as you saw in the beginning of this presentation, Roger Rabbit might have been one of the first examples where we saw digital elements and characters being mixed with real humans in a film environment, giving us a vision for how an AR future could look like. But it took quite a long time, and AR was sleeping for many, many, many years until we really got AR top of mind again. Of course, I'm referring to the brand that you all think about when you're thinking about an AR game, and it's Pokemon Go. And Pokemon Go was released in 2016. It was a huge success. It was a game that brought 20 million players who hadn't played mobile games before to play on mobile. And what it did for us AR developers was putting people's attention on AR. But Pokemon Go has 2 AR elements. And the first one was that you could put Pokemon in front of the camera. So, for example, you could put Clefairy in your grandma's closet, or you can put your Pikachu in your bathtub, or your Jigglypuff on the living room floor, and then post it on social media. And this was really successful to get the game out there and be seen. There was, however, a problem. It was that the battery went down quickly when using this AR element. So unfortunately, people turned off this function because they couldn't play for it for long. And there was a second AR element, Not everyone calls it the AR element. I claim it to be. It was the map function, which is the very core gameplay, that you have to walk somewhere to find certain Pokemons, to go to certain Poke Centers and get experience. So the walking around on the real map was really something that was completely new at this time to the mainstream audience. And it really opened up everyone's eyes to that it's possible to mix reality and gameplay elements. And still, there are about 40 to 50 million people playing Pokemon Go. But there are much more things going on right now. And the very developer of Pokemon Go, Niantic, are working on something extremely exciting, which you might have heard about in the recent days, and they have postponed it several times. It was supposed to come out in 2018 from the start, then they postponed it a few times there, and now it has popped over to 2019. We still don't know the exact release date, but the game is built on a very successful brand again. It's Harry Potter Wizards Unite. And Harry Potter Wizards Unite is of course going to be huge. It has also a very strong following, just like Pokemon Go. And it's going to be similar to Pokemon Go in the sense that it's also using the geolocation-based map, where you have to go somewhere to find wizards or find items that you want. And the game has just been soft-launched in New Zealand. And it's likely to be using even more advanced AR functions than Pokemon Go did. And I found a video on YouTube. There aren't that many out there yet, but showing a little bit of the gameplay in the game, the map, how it looks like. And something that is interesting is also in this next stage, they put a quite realistic background in front of the digital elements, gameplay elements, which makes it feel like AR, even though that specific part isn't really AR. That's a really smart way of doing it. And this is a really new trailer from Rovio, who have also just made an AR game, I Love Pigs, that you can play on your tables, and it suits the normal Angry Birds gameplay really well. We haven't seen much results from the game yet, but it's going to be super exciting to see. And this is where we are right now. Like Harry Potter is happening, Minecraft Earth is happening, and Angry Birds is getting AR games. But what's next? There is one AR tech that seems much more interesting than any other. And that one means that we can place an AR object through our camera and then letting another person use their camera to see the same game object in the exact same location. And this is done through that the first person placing out this AR object is uploading this data to the cloud, and the second phone downloads the data, puts the digital object for the second phone at the same exact place. And this opens up for extremely interesting multiplayer opportunities in AR. Because suddenly you can start building worlds. It becomes kind of like a shared reality. And it's called Cloud Anchors. There aren't many videos of this either yet. I'm sure it's soon gonna be more. But in this video, you see two guys that have placed out obstacles between each other in order to play a shooting game where they can hide behind those objects to shoot each other. And just imagine what you can co-create with this kind of technology. There is really a lot you can do. So this is what we really think is the future, and it seems like also the giants are very curious about this technology right now. And now that you know a little bit about the background and where we're going, how do you practically get started? You need an AR starter pack, and you will get it in the form of a story about yourselves. So let's say you have an amazing AR idea. The first thing you do is using AR Core from Google or AR Kit from Apple. And these are the software development kits from Apple and Google to give you the right tools to start with AR. And for VR developers, this is basically like Steam VR was for VR. And more specifically, what it does is giving you the feature points through the camera, so reading the contrasts of what it sees through the camera to read where there are corners, edges, and depth that you can use for AR. And you have also read about a smart guy called Raymond Loewy who used an expression called Maya, a design principle, to work with new technology. It was Maya as in most advanced yet acceptable. And it means like that you can use the most advanced technology, but you need to keep in mind that it can't be that too big of a leap for the user to use this technology. So it still has to be based on what the user already knows and can do, and then make that small, not too large from a user perspective. So you're designing your game or application with all this in mind. And the next thing you do is designing a tutorial. And the tutorial, of course, needs to be guiding the player through the process of getting started with AR and placing the AR digital content. So, for example, why not guide the player through simple pictures that shows that the player needs this good lighting, a flat surface, and a surface with contrasts. So not just a plain one-colored surface. And this is not super easy because it is pretty new for the player to need all those three requirements. And therefore it's so much more important to educate the player in what he or she needs to do to get started. The next thing you do is making sure that the graphics in the game look good up close. And this is just as for VR, because you can get as close as you like. The player can choose wherever he or she wants to look in the game. This also means that you cannot hide things like in normal games with flat surfaces because the player can look behind them too and see that it's fake or wrong. So you need to really make sure everything looks all right for the player. And we're still, just as in VR, we're still using low poly models, and we still have to keep in mind to keep performance well. And the app size is really important for mobile. Most people have a pretty restricted amount of space on their phones, and if you need more than 150 megabytes for Apple, it will double check if you really want to download the app or wait until you have Wi-Fi. So these are some things that you are considering. And you have also Googled and you found out that you need to check a checkbox in ARKit to make sure that only devices that are AR compatible can download the game. Because otherwise, a lot of people will be able to download your game and then they can't play it. So of course, you just want people who can play the game to download the game. And this is called something like UI required capabilities, and an easy thing to do at the start. But after you have uploaded the app, if you haven't done it, you would have to remove your app completely from App Store and then upload a new one. So you gotta get this right from the start. And you release your game and you think everything is going well, but no, it doesn't, because you run into some obstacles immediately. And the first one is that retention is going down, which is sad. How many of you in here would look up the optimal lighting conditions and a flat surface and a contrasted surface the second time you want to play an AR game? Yeah, no one. So that is an issue that we as AR developers have to think about, because we are putting a lot of pressure and requirements on our players in order to play the game, and we want them to play it as much as possible, of course. So one solution to this is to create a minigame, some kind of non-AR version of the game which you can get back to. Because imagine if you're lying beside your partner and your partner wants to sleep, having the light turned off, but you want to play a game. Then enable your player to being able to get back to the game in one way or another. It doesn't have to be exactly the same game, but in non-AR. It can also be some kind of AR game, so that the player, at least if he or she wants it, can keep the game top of mind. Next thing you run into is that someone writes a comment on App Store saying, "Do not download this game. The fact that it can only be played on an AR surface is really stupid." Yeah, and this is still after having prevented people who can't use AR, they cannot download the game, and you have a non-AR version of the game. This is about something deeper. Did the person know that it was an AR game from the start, or AR first game from the start that he or she downloaded? Maybe not, and maybe the message and communication is your responsibility. So you have to be super clear, and you're going to this lecture and hearing this, or you learn it, and then you're being super clear to the users that this is an AR game. So you're adding AR to the name of the game. You're making sure to write in the description of the game that notes, this is a game that is best played with good lighting and the flat surface, etc. So you're really putting it in the face to the player, and maybe even use it in your marketing to make sure it's super clear. Because only having it in the name might also suggest that it is the kind of geolocation-based only game that other games are. Another thing is that you find out that when you see other players playing your game, you notice that they can't find a big enough area or table to put the AR space on. And then they can't play the game either. So there is a quite easy solution there, because you rather want to make the adaptation in the game and for the player to use, rather than forcing the player to find a new environment and adapting their environment. So what you can do then is adding a slider in which you can adjust the AR space in. So being able to adapt for the player how much of an AR space you want to play with. And when you follow all of these steps and learnings and not falling into the same traps as we have done, then we can create the future together by building an AR future and AR games that are exciting. And maybe it will look like this.
When I was just a little girl, I asked my mother, what will I be?
Will I be pretty? Will I be rich? Is what she said to me. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera. What will be, will be. Que sera, sera.
Do what you can't. And that leads us into the next part of this presentation, which is about the unknown territory that is left to explore in augmented reality. There are a lot of questions that are unanswered, that need someone to dig into it. To start with, how would you like to interact with other people using global digital anchors? Would you, for example, leave a love letter in your bathroom for your partner to come home and find? Or would you create a digital pet for your kid to leave in his or her room? Or would you create a treasure chest to get your friends over and find? What would you put in a world which you can get as close as possible to? So for this love letter, is it possible to get close and see the kissing marks? Or for the pet, would you find fleas if you look too close? The digital pets. Or for the treasure chest, will the code that you need to open it be on the bottom that you need to look really close to? And how would you let the weather affect the game environment? If it's raining outside, will it rain in the game as well? If it's snowing, do certain enemies appear or hide? Will the game go faster in the daylight or when it's sunny? And how can the time of the day influence what kind of enemies appear? So here, for example, Pokemon that only appear during the night, or armies that don't wake up until 1 p.m. How can the colors in your real room change the stats of your character? So if you're using AR in a red room, will it increase the courage of your character? Or in the green room, will it affect the stamina that you have? And this one is scary. How can your pulse determine next time you will get a jump scare? Imagine all those horror games that you play them and then the game feels, and this is quite easily done because most phones can measure your pulse nowadays, just putting your finger behind the phone. Imagine that as soon as your pulse starts dropping because you start to feel safe, then a new monster appears behind you. Ah. And from pulse to heart, there are a lot of things we could do with AR that can help humanity. VR has already helped PTSD patients. It has helped people who have lost a leg to feel their prosthesis. And people who are scared of spiders can also be helped with VR. In AR, we haven't seen that much yet, but it's definitely possible. And there is a game that is real garbage. Real garbage. It's a game in Sweden where kids can run around, get garbage, taking a photo of it, uploading it to the cloud, and getting points for it. And then they have to throw it away, of course. Thank you very much for coming to this presentation. If you want to discuss the future of gaming more, please come talk to me afterwards. I would love to discuss the AR and games and the future possibilities that we have. And if you want to reach me on Twitter or my email. Thank you very much.